All right, everyone. Welcome to one more episode of Semfiloquia. Here we have a first new series. We are resuming our Semfiloquia series, and we have Sofia, who's going to be our host, at least for the next few sessions. And I wanted to just, if you're watching this, you know that something has happened, because this is not our usual YouTube channel. We still have hopes that we might get our original YouTube channel back. Unfortunately, we had a case of a hack, and our digital identity was stolen, and we are working to recover our YouTube channel and all our bearings. Thankfully, no major losses have happened other than the access to the YouTube channel, but we are working on it, and bear with us because we might need to be adapting. And so for now, we're going to be live streaming on this YouTube channel, and content will be put out at least temporarily here. So if you are following us, follow this channel for now, and hopefully we'll get our channel back, because the other channel doesn't exist. You can't even find it on YouTube because it was taken down. So with that said, I want to give way to Sofía Gallego. She is our recent associate that joined SEMF after our last summer school, and she has some nice ideas to take the host position in this Semfiloquia conversations that I was sort of taking on in the past. But from now onwards, Sofía is going to have her hand at it, and today I am here just as representative of SEMF, not as the host. So without further ado, Sofía, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Carlos, and thank you very much to you and to SEMF for giving me the opportunity to lead this existing but novel initiative to talk about different topics, especially in the terms of interdisciplinarity, which is the topic that takes us today. And I think I will start by introducing a little bit of myself. As Carlos said, my name is Sofía Gallego. I am actually from Chile, where I study astrophysics and also opera singing. And I did also acting and many other interdisciplinary things. But then I moved to Switzerland, where I did a PhD in extragalactic astrophysics. And then I did two postdocs, one in the States and the other one in Paris, where I currently live. And I'm pursuing an entrepreneurial career currently. But today is not about my life. It's about the life of SEMF. So I met SEMF a few months ago, where I went to the summer school that was organized in Valencia. Amazing time, amazing people, amazing topics. And I actually wanted to start by asking you a question. Since now I'm acting as a host and you are the person who is getting interviewed in a way, I would like to ask you, for somebody who doesn't know you, who are you? Why are you here?
Me personally?
Yes,
right?
your person.
Yes. So I am a curious mind, I would say. From a very young age, I wanted to understand the universe. As many kids, you're very curious, and I guess that curiosity never really went away. I got very enticed by the history of physics and the developments in sort of fundamental science, learning about the laws of astrophysics and fundamental particles and biology, microscopic life and all these things. That really fascinated me. And my changing experience was discovering that there were some very comprehensible and easy to grasp, or relatively easy to grasp, rules and methods that one could follow to understand reality. And this is what we call mathematics, or science and empirical science. And I was very struck by this. I guess that gripped me and hasn't really let go since. I pursued an academic career in physics, mathematical physics, doing all kinds of sort of fundamental quantum mechanics, classical mechanics, mathematical foundations therein, and so on. And well, SEMF, I'm here because I launched SEMF a few years back as a collective effort with other friends, with the intention to effectively have these things happen, where you from the other side of the world, we didn't know each other at all a few months ago, and you were able to very quickly make connections and say, hey, these people are cool. We are thinking similar
I
terms.
felt at home, let's say
That's
it.
right. That's right. So that would be my answer. That's why I'm here. I wanted to, I guess, if you ask me personally, maybe I can tell an anecdote. When I was 5 years old, I've always had an impulse to create sort of communities around the things I'm passionate about. So one of the earliest memories I have of this is when I was, I think, around 4 or 5. I was very, very young. I remember that some of my friends were getting the early Game Boy systems, the portable video games back in the 90s. And I remember that I didn't have access to them as soon as they had it. So I was always saying, hey, we're really passionate about video games. Why don't we create a club where if each of us has a couple of games, we collectively have like many games, right? And it was, I mean,
So
really like in
smart.
my mind,
Yeah.
that was the idea. So
Mhm.
SEMF is basically that, just hey, if we each of us has a few ideas that are cool and
Share
interesting,
video games. Yeah. Maybe we should do a session about video games.
we should. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, actually, that's a very good point. Reminding yourself about your early childhood and when you were a 5 year old, because I have a little game for you.
Hmm.
Well, let's say a role play game. Imagine that you're in an elevator and you are with Octosenf. Can you please, before that, explain to people what is Octosenf?
Oh yes, unfortunately, I'm not in my usual residence, so Octosenf is not by
No.
my side like it usually. But Octosenf is our mascot. He's an octopus, and it represents the ramifications of knowledge with the tentacles.
Yeah, I met Octosenf during the school,
Summer
and
school,
it
yeah.
was fun. I took a couple of pictures of Octosenf.
Yes, we have some really interesting
Yeah.
pictures with Octosenf.
So imagine that you are in an elevator, mhm,
Mhm.
and with a 5 year old kid. Let's say 5 year old because you were quoting yourself at 5. And you are with your Octosenf, holding your Octosenf, going to the conference. You're wearing the Senf t-shirt. Octosenf is also wearing the Senf t-shirt.
Of course.
And the little kid asks you, hey, what is that? What is Senf? So how
Hmm.
would you, to a 5 year old kid, explain what Senf is?
Well, that's a good way to put it, and I
Mhm.
kind of answered myself by telling the anecdote, right? Because I would describe it as
No, no.
uh,
Let's assume that I am the kid. So you're
oh,
talking to me.
oh,
Yes, it's a role. It's a game. So you have to role play.
okay,
Pretend that
okay.
you are looking at this kid, and I am the kid, and it's like, hey, what is it? What is that you have in your hand?
Well, this is a community of people. We get together. It's like a big group of friends.
Mm.
We like to study different things and understand about the world. There are many complicated things in the world that we don't understand. They're very highly complex, and we like to get together and share our findings. And when we work together, we find out more things than if we work alone.
That's so cool. Can I join?
Of course. So our events are open to young people as well. Like we don't have an age limit, of course. Maybe
Yeah. Do
depending
we
on
all
your
get? Do
maturity.
we all get an octopus as a toy to play?
I wish that we had resources. That would be a nice thing to have.
Yeah. I mean, I think 5 year old me would have liked that, and actually, I would have asked the same as I'm asking right now. So
Good.
I, I think, I mean, something that really joined people who participate in these kind of things is like a sense of awe that never stop happening.
Hmm.
Think most, I mean, I myself consider, in order to be a scientist or to be curious about the world, you have to be like a child in a
Hmm.
way. You have to be very open-minded and stuff. And I think that's something that's very nice about SEMF
Yeah.
and about interdisciplinarity, because it's just to never stop asking yourself questions. And I think that takes me to like another question that I have. Yeah. So when you created SEMF, what kind of questions were you trying to make space that they didn't fit elsewhere?
Mm. Um, so that's a good question. I think that um, the specific questions, perhaps at the time, were not so clear in the sense that we were reacting more to a dominant disciplinary segregated landscape more than the absence of certain questions. However, and this was going to come out sooner or later, so rather sooner than later, I guess. Our acronym is fundamental and multidisciplinary, right? We have these two words. To me, the weight is on fundamental, right? For me, the questions were about foundations and understanding sort of deeper mechanisms and effectively what theoretical physics has been for the last 100 years or so, this mentality of we want laws that describe more things with simpler terms and so on, kind of try to extrapolate that to other areas. But I personally had a few questions in mind. For example, origin of life. I really wanted to know about how you go from a prebiotic soup of chemicals to something that is, walking around, making decisions, thinking, loving, suffering, and so on, right? That to me was a very interesting problem that's still very much up in the air to be resolved. So that's one of the things that I saw that science was not tackling directly. Obviously, there were some teams working on the topic, but it didn't feel that the efforts in science were commensurate with the degree of fundamentality of the problems being worked on. And of course, we live in a very economical world, and things need to be justified by their economic viability and how things get funded and so on. But even so, I was seeing a lot of trends in very theoretical science that had no particular application that was still very much kind of in a niche and in a direction that was maybe overdone or could be judged as being a bit overdone, instead of actually going for foundations. And one of the early, like answering to your question, one of the early influences that I had to actually make the decision or like take the step to set up something like SEMF was attending some gatherings in a society called Basic Research Community for Physics, which is a European level kind of theoretical physics and mathematics society, where the sentiment was made into a constitution for a small society, right? The sentiment of we want to think about fundamental problems. We are back when in the 1920s with the leading figures of quantum mechanics back then, and we want to understand what is measurement, what is this issue with the collapse of the wave function, like all these philosophically rich problems that are still open. We wanted to have a go at them and really think about them. They were called rethinking workshops. That was the branding, rethinking, right? So it was all about this. So to me, this was important that we created a space and sort of an environment where people can let go of the practicality of life and say, okay, if I just let my inner child, as you say, run wild with curiosity, this is what we'd like to do, right? So
yeah, actually, I mean, I wanted to ask you one question, but I think I will ask you something that will lead you to that question, because you mentioned that for you fundamental it's the most fundamental or relevant part of the organization you have created. But interdisciplinarity is a topic that takes us today, and is one of the parts of the organization. So what does interdisciplinary have to do with answering fundamental questions?
Yeah, fantastic follow-up question. I would say interdisciplinarity is, in the best of cases, I would say the natural consequence of fundamentality in a way, I would say. One sometimes is compelled to force interdisciplinarity to a degree because you just want the multidimensional, multi-faceted influences to be sort of a driving force or a positive influence. But oftentimes when you ask a question that is deep enough, it's likely to, I mean, if it's really a fundamental question, meaning it's a frontier question, it's asking about open questions in science, it's asking about unresolved problems and unknowns, it is likely to fall outside of well-consolidated areas of research. And therefore, if it's outside of well-consolidated areas of research, it is likely that several areas of research claim that is in their boundary, right? Several, and this is happening again and again when we see, for example, where the role of intelligence with the recent popularity of AI, a lot of computer scientists and sort of programmer types are latching onto this and jumping on it. There's a lot of people going into this from that direction. But of course, you have a long tradition or relatively long tradition of neuroscience that was already thinking about that. And even before that, you had psychologists, and even before that, you had natural scientists and so on, right? So there's always communities of the sufficiently unknown that they will claim that that is in their boundaries or in their outskirts. And if you drew the Venn diagrams, this would mean that there's several intersections happening there,
Yeah.
right? So that would be my best argument for that.
Yeah, and I mean, a more personal level, um, it's like all these ideas that you get, and like you arrive into these fundamental questions that they seem to be very interdisciplinary. Was like something you pursue on purpose, or was like the questions you questioning yourself that led you to understand the world in this way?
I think in my personal case, I arrived at multidisciplinarity or interdisciplinarity, as I say, as a consequence of the fundament of asking the fundamental questions. However, I have had a lot of experience with teams where interdisciplinarity is something spontaneous. And I should say that interdisciplinarity being a point of conversation is more of a um, I don't want to say artifact, but it's almost like an idiosyncratic thing that happens within academia, because in the real world, where you're concerned with practical projects and endeavors of building a bridge or making sure that people go from A to B, or people are fed, or people are safe and things like that. Reality just doesn't care about our categories, right? Like nature does not really care that you called something electrical engineering and something else you call nursery and something else you call architecture. So if you want to live in a society where things are working, then most projects are going to have to coordinate multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary efforts.
In a way, everything then is interdisciplinary.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
in a way, right? So then the opposite question comes to mind is like, so what are disciplines good at? Why do we have disciplines then?
Yeah, I would say the short answer is history. I would say that you have a historical trace of scholarly work, and I think humans have a tendency to be very scholarly, if that makes sense. I think once you have a written word and you have records, I mean, maybe before that you have oral tradition, and that's kind of the same manifestation of the phenomenon. But especially since you have written records, humans tend to be quite scholarly, meaning, and I'm saying a very neutral
It's a bit of a
statement.
bias because the history is written mostly by those people who follow.
No, this is
That's what
true.
you,
This is
right?
true. But I think that the absolute preeminence and absolute universality of for example, the religious text phenomenon, right, where you have a sacred text that, by the way, this doesn't have to be a traditional religion. It could be something like human rights charter, something like that, right? We have a tendency of saying, okay, there's something that we hold sacred, and we are going to just not change, right, and preserve. So I mean, this is quite the extreme, right? I'm just going to the phenomenon extreme, but to explain what disciplines are, I think it is the natural phenomenon of schools that are created, right? So a lot of people pour a lot of effort in doing something. It's usually very valuable because it often is breaking ground. It often corresponds to an innovation, something that didn't happen before. And then a lot of effort is concentrated in that direction. People flock to that school of thought, and then they produce a lot more, and each of them leave their own trail. So this is sort of this typical kind of compounding effect of even more and more and more self-preserving trail of ways of thought. And if you have something like a printing industry, like in Europe in the last 400 years, or in the international community, maybe in the last 100 or so, or you have the academic production system, then those translate into silos of discipline. And this is, you can trace it all the way down to the journal specifically, or the paper classification that you have for your preprints. And then at large, you can say, okay, this is everyone writing papers is in that boat, right? So disciplines appear somewhere in there. And, historically, things like, well, we need buildings for different people, might as well, arrange them according to who are more likely to talk to each other and things like that, right? So I think it's mostly historical. I would say that, I mean, but obviously not to downplay the fact that the disciplines that appear historically sometimes or maybe often have a correlate of the content. So, for example, often the disciplines are um, effectively they are arranged around different phenomena, right? So when people who study animals, people who study the stars, and people who study other people and things like that, right? So it is often arranged in that way, but the more negative aspects of disciplines or rigidity within disciplinary divisions, I think, come more from the inertia of historical practice, and just the fact that over generations, it requires extra energy to cross-pollinate and cross
Yeah,
interact.
definitely. I think it's something that I have experienced myself in the sense that there's always, I mean, this current world, the way it works, it feels like you have to specialize, right? You have to like choose
Mhm.
a discipline, and the natural tendency is to find jobs or to find studies that take you to a very particular specialization until you become like an expert in something extremely narrow.
Yes.
And I have always a little bit rebel against that in a way. It's just, I mean, it's the way my brain works. I know I'm not the only one.
Mhm.
And I know in SEMF it's full of people who maybe be around the same way.
Yeah.
It's like you're forced to choose to know a lot about nothing,
Mhm.
or I mean, to know a lot about a very particular thing, or to know nothing but about a very wide spectrum of things. And it's almost like a choice, you know.
Yeah.
Do you have like a criticism? Do you follow that kind of criticism in the sense that like the world tends to like choose a certain kind of way of behaving, of expectation of you to be, and
Mhm.
there's missing, you know, of like more like a forest picture of reality. What do you think about that? Mhm.
Mhm. Um, I think so. I think that I felt that, and but I think I was so interested, genuinely interested in the questions of my field, in my case,
Mhm.
physics, theoretical physics, that I didn't see it until I wanted to do something else, and then I realized that there was these patterns. So I'm curious also how you experienced it, how you felt it.
I mean, for example, I mean, I'm curious about a lot of things. I'm, for example, very passionate about neuroscience, especially the physics of consciousness and things related to that that are also very fundamental. I
Mm,
think I study astrophysics first of all because I had to choose a career and start from the A, and I never reached B. It
mhm,
just seemed super interesting, and it was about, you know, the whole, the experience of everything. You can tackle that question from physics or from philosophy maybe, or from neuroscience. But at that age, I just didn't know neuroscience existed. But I was also a musician and an artist, you know, since I was a child. I just didn't recognize myself as one because I studied in a musical school. So I learned how to play the violin, how to read, how to sing since I was very young. So I did
mm,
have my kind of crisis in the sense that I didn't feel that my career complete me 100%. I felt like part of myself was getting lost. So I
mm,
actually left astrophysics, astronomy studies for a while to study opera singing. And
mm,
it was amazing. It was very fulfilling, but it also didn't feel like the whole of myself. So then at some point, I decided to do both careers at the same time, which was crazy, but maybe one of the best times of my life. But because at the same time, I had to work, you know, and in order to pay for the studies, because in Chile, you know, it's expensive to study.
mhm,
Um, it was a crazy time. At some point, I had to choose because, yeah, you know, you have to survive out of something, right?
mm,
So I thought science was like a better way to like experience and get perspectives by, you know, living somewhere else, where I ended up studying in Switzerland and then moved to many countries, you know. But I have always, it's just like a matter of personality. I don't claim that I am like particularly special or anything. I just think that just my brain wants to experience many different things, and it feels a bit suffocated when it's just forced to just choose one thing.
mhm,
And everybody tells me, you have to choose. But every time I do that choice in a way, you know, it feels like I'm constraining myself.
mm,
And I think, I mean, maybe astrophysics is a bit particular in the sense that it's maybe less interdisciplinary than other things because it's just like so out of there. you know, that maybe the tools can be very, you know, they can take advantage from many other fields, but it's very, you know, narrow, ironically speaking, because it's everything that is outside of us, you know.
Yes.
And there's a lot of information, but it's there, you know. It's very hard to connect it to things that relate to the human experience, which is something that I'm also fascinated. So it's a particular vision. I mean, I know I'm not the only one, but I know I'm also no, just a particular case. So
Right.
I relate to people, but most people, you know, actually are happy within their fields of study. Yes, like I did like where I was working, but at some point, like also life choices have to happen, and I decided to you know, follow a more entrepreneurial career because maybe it's a bit more wide in the terms of the creative choices that I can make. And I know that many people that are in SEMF and they participate in the schools or are part of the organization, um, they have similar experiences. I don't know. I mean, in how many years have SEMF existed, actually?
Yeah, so that is I mean, as we have it today and in its current form, I think it's been 4 years,
Mhm,
5 maybe.
mhm,
Effectively since the pandemic struck. Before we existed, the domain existed and so on, and we were sort of a more local student-run society. But in its current form, it's about, yeah, I would say 4 years since
mhm.
it came into itself in the first form. By the way, let's do a very quick break. Just go on hold on the live stream,
Okay.
and
Mhm,
we'll be back in 1 minute.
mhm.
So let me just. All right, everyone, welcome
Yeah,
back
we are
to.
back, and I think in a more decent volume for myself.
I
Apparently,
hope
there were
so.
some.
Yes.
Yeah, I was too far away from outer space, and now I came back to Earth. Yeah.
Great.
So yeah, we were talking about SEMF and how many years SEMF was existing. And actually, my question was, I mean, when I went to the summer school, I met people from very, very different backgrounds and very different experiences. But I felt there was a lot of things that were common between us and also different. But I want to like ask you, as the organizer, you know, how do you feel? I mean, what is the most common traits that people that join this school have? And what do you think the difference that we have contribute, you know, to make this school very interdisciplinary?
Well, I would say the most common trend, the most common trait of people that decide to spontaneously come to the summer school is usually the resonance with the ideas that you were describing earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they see, oh, there's a group of people that just to, you know, go somewhere, spend a week discussing all these topics, and with a range of going from hardcore science and technology to arts, and you know, going out at night and having nice food and dancing and all that stuff. So that is, I think, our target profile, so to speak, someone who is into that sort of way of life, or at least that have what I like to call the summer school, our interdisciplinary school. I like to call it a intellectual vacation, right? Where you, I mean, some people like to go to other cities to, you know, sit in a beach or see enough, you know, they have enough of their city and they want to see some other architecture or something. I feel like summer school, SEMF, interdisciplinary school, can be understood as kind of this intellectual vacation, right? Where you have a very specific experience of having a lot of people describe it as really high bandwidth experience where you're constantly being stimulated at all these intellectual channels, right? Because you go from, as I say, we have hardcore mathematics, physics, computer science, then we're talking about history, then we're talking about arts, then people get involved with some creation, there's singing, there's acting, and it's really what we think as kind of all the spectrum of human creation and can be represented in some capacity, right? So I think people mostly that resonate with that are the people that gravitate towards the event. But then also we just get a lot of people that are very interested in some of the specific topics, right? When we invite specific speakers, we tend to, I think we've been very lucky to be able to invite quite interesting speakers themselves, quite high profile at times as well, that they are themselves if I might say so myself, I think the people are, especially the senior people that we've made contact with, they are quite impressed with how genuine the event turns out. And because we are nonprofit, we have no agenda, right? There's no other goals of the event other than the event itself. Unlike a conference in science, where the goal should be to do something after the conference, right? Where you should go on and write papers and push your experiments, have new ideas for your job as a scientist. In SEMF events, the events are an end in themselves, right? We want the events to be as fulfilling and as inspiring as they can be. So I think a lot of people have recognized that value. I would say that is the most value that we offer the world in our activities, is that, as you said, we can be children for a week. We can be, adult children by and asking the same questions that we had maybe when we were 5, and we're still convinced that they are not fully resolved today. But at the same time, you can find someone who has the same hobbies, and oh yeah, I also did some miniature painting, and I'm into building bigatures in my free time or whatever. It's very random stuff. It's very natural in some sense. I always compare it to, by the way, also with a sort of childhood analogy. When you were young and you went in recess time, you go out and you had some minutes of break with your friends between classes in school. Those times for me always felt like you're always sharing the coolest stuff that you have. Oh yeah, yesterday I watched this cartoon and it was super cool. Or I watched the last Star Wars movie, and you're like all gushing about different scenes in the movie and so on. To me, SEMF is like, let's capture that environment and let's have like little pockets of that in like the year. Maybe we do once a year this summer school. We could also do like some kind of retreat, or when we do our online sessions as well, and we try to capture that sort of sense of urgency of, oh, this is so cool, we need to share it, we need someone else to appreciate it.
Yeah, I have so many questions. I don't know where to tackle. Okay, I think I will ask you a question, given that we got hacked. Imagine that SEMF got hacked from existence, and you have to start again, and you go back in time and you talk to your old self, Carlos. And what will you tell to your old self? Would you change something? Will you, if you can set just one question back to yourself, for example, or one point,
Right.
what would it be?
That's funny you asked that with the incidental point of being
Yeah,
hacked,
exactly.
because I mean, I was effectively in this mindset, at least for some aspect of SEMF in the last couple of weeks. So yeah, that's a good question. Let me answer carefully.
Yes, I'm challenging you.
Yes,
that's my goal of today, to make a question that you cannot answer right away.
Yes. Yeah. Now this is so the question is, what would one point of information I would give myself?
One point you will lead to yourself. Yeah.
That's a good. Maybe, I mean, it sounds a bit overconfident, but I would say believe that this is valuable, that people will perceive it as valuable. Because when we began, we had no idea how valuable it was going to be perceived as, right? And so far, everyone we've made contact with, especially in the academic world, but also outside, has praised how genuine it feels, has praised how, the sort of vibes. We've had several anecdotes of people that were very skeptical at first, even sort of like rejecting us when we invited them, and kind of almost mocking us in our invitation, saying, literally
What the
email
hell?
exchange where it's like, oh yeah, I could give a talk, but who cares? This is like not serious because what business do I, as a mathematician, what business do I have with an archaeologist? Like there's real exchanges in the past. And that same person, a professor of mathematics, went from kind of not mocking, but kind of like dismissing us in emails exchanges, going from that to, by the end of the conference that we had online on numbers, saying, well, I apologize that that was like this in personal emails, but and going publicly in his talk, in his session, saying, I never thought that I could learn so much from an archaeologist, and this has been a very eye-opening experience. And these were very established intellectuals in some sense. These are professors in mathematics. These people they are cultured. It's not that that we are opening anything.
Why do you think they are like that? What do you think they are so reactive at first? Like so many, people
I mean,
that
this comes down to
recognize the
personality
area.
as well, but I guess, I mean, when something becomes someone's job, it has a high probability of becoming oxidated, right? Becoming kind of like a bit cranky and a bit, like a little bit slow. And I think that these people are extremely sharp intellectually, of course. I mean, they're brilliant intellectuals and brilliant scientists. But oftentimes, if you spend too much time inside an echo chamber, right, like the phenomenon is like no one is immune to echo chambers, right? Like it just happens. So I guess having something like SEMF around is a good medicine to echo chambers. I mean, of course, we are ourselves kind of in our own echo chamber of how great multidisciplinarity is and so on. But by the nature of what we do, I think we are much more well positioned to be permeable to information as it flows, right? And because if there's a trend in some area, then it flows very quickly into other areas. And so because we sort of put ourselves in the middle, we're constantly in the influx. We are sort of the harbor city of the Middle Ages, right? Where life was extremely different in a city like Venice than in a random village in the middle of Europe, right? Because the information throughput in the different locations was extremely different, right? So we like to think that SEMF is that kind of high information throughput virtual place that you can.
But I mean, I want to go like a little bit on a criticism in the sense that, as you say, we are echo chambers, right? We are living in our own bubble. Do you think, I mean, I think initiatives like these I mean, at least are self-aware on the echo chambers they live within. Is there anything that we can do as a community to expand our bubbles, to expand our echo chambers, to explore how to be more open and to, exchange knowledge beyond our circles that tend to be very academic?
Yeah, I think that the way you do that is by looking at problems, and instead of academic questions or research proposals or things that, because as we know, academia has an incentive issue, right? I mean, this was actually one of the foundational principles of SEMF. It was that the incentives in academia were often at least highly correlated with career development within academia, which when you analyze it is not probably the major factor that drives science, right? Science is not usually driven by raw curiosity, the insatisfaction of not understanding. I think this is very important. People miss how dissatisfied one has to be to do science, and this is maybe it's tangential point.
Frustration.
It's frustration, yes, and
Yeah.
this is a point I make many times because anecdotally, sometimes when during my studies in my PhD or like when I was learning in the physics and mathematics, my parents would come around and say, hey, what's the matter, Carlos? You're angry. You seem to be concerned. Not angry, but you seem like somehow worried and pensive. And I said, no, this is the nature of not understanding. Like I look at a problem and I'm confused and I'm at discomfort, right? Like and many students, I've told this many times, that if you feel this discomfort, that is 80% of the way, right? Because if you have the discomfort, then you're going to have the urge to move towards comfort, and that is the understanding journey, right? Like you're going to try to take steps to understand. So, but moving away from discomfort in this intellectual sense is not usually what an academic career is built on, right? An academic career involves publishing papers, getting some kind of metrics that go up, having the right peers that recommend you, things that are totally detached from the content of the science itself. And so one of the things that I think we wanted to bring back, and I think is what we should really consider seriously, answering your question, is looking at problems in the world. Like go out and look at problems. Just look at what we don't understand. How can we exist on this planet as a cognitive species that don't fully control the environment, but has agency to some degree in the environment? Like this is a very big question, right? And without moving into something more sort of activist or trying to change people's minds about the state of climate change or anything like that, you can just pose the problem and say, this is a big problem. It's a very difficult problem. Or, how do we don't annihilate ourselves as a planetary civilization? This is a very difficult problem, right? Like it's proven increasingly difficult as time goes on, right? So it's these problems that I feel really can ground you, and because they are inescapable, right? In some sense, that you can't escape being alive, living on a limited material world, as we all are. And if you get lost in considerations and different theories, and this person says this and this person says that, and you get into these scholarly debates, it can be entertaining, it can be fun, it can be very edifying intellectually, but ultimately you run the risk of just playing language games and detaching from reality. And I think that is the anchor that one can always go back to.
I can follow up, like either going political or going to future forward. What do you want to go first?
Let's go political first.
Let's go political first. Okay, because I think like a current phenomena that I think many of us are experiencing is that these echo chambers, are tend to be, a symptom of how massive the influence of social media, of the internet, this globalized world have on people. What do you think it's the role of interdisciplinarity or organizations, ideas like the ones of SEMF or people like us that are pursuing are helpful in order to change this kind of phenomenon of polarization or echo chamber enclosed? How do you think these initiatives can help to change that perspective?
Well, I love your question. I have to say, I'm not just saying it for the sake of being polite, but I really like that you went in this direction, because it's something that I have been. I mean, as I described earlier, this is not why I decided that SEMF was a good idea. This is not why the people that got together and put SEMF together and built the early SEMF. This is not what we had in mind at all, right? We were very much trying to get out of the rigidity of disciplines in academia, trying to answer or tackle the real questions in science and fundamental problems and so on. But as the years have gone by, this is certainly something where I think SEMF can be very useful, right? And I think many of our community members are a testament to this. Like the ways that we've dealt with, for example, kind of on the edge intellectual integrity, right? That where you go a bit too far and you are in sort of crank territory and sort of like crazy theories, and you got a bit too inside and you are in an echo chamber, right? Like in this kind of boundaries, I think that we have people in our community. I mean, you and I know them. You know, they're maybe watching this and they know us. They are very active, and I think I've learned a great deal from them in sort of seeing how one navigates this kind of plurality of opinion. The sort of obviously everyone is very empirical. This is something that we many of us have sort of a scientific background or are in a very scientific mindset. So that's good, because I think being empirical means that you live in the world. It's not so much that you are brainwashed by some kind of a weird way of thinking. It's that you are like as much as you can be in the world. But I do think there's a lot of value in what SEMF has kind of evolved into, especially as a small community that we are. But the values that we are aspiring to within that small community, I think, are a very good antidote against something like typical echo chamber behavior of social media nowadays, right? Because I mean, just by the nature of how people engage with information or content, let's say, many of us feel proactive and creative. That's already a way to break out, because you need to make something that doesn't exist. So you're likely to be breaking some ground. But also in terms of the pure social interactions, what I've seen constantly is the degree of open-mindedness that one has to have these conversations. Is being childlike. When a child doesn't know about something, they are just sort of open-eyed and saying, okay, tell me more. And this attitude is extremely common, right? Every time I've seen conversations, I've been surprised that without doing hard selection, because our participants, we don't really hard select, we kind of vet a little bit, because there might be some like opportunities that we offer once and not others, but there's mostly people just randomly showing up to our events. And I've been very positively surprised how often I'm seeing this attitude, where someone is just sitting there getting thrown a lot of information in one topic, and they're basically taking it in, and then they throw it back from their perspective, and there's this very natural exchange. So yes, I think there's a lot of value there. Absolutely.
And I was thinking just randomly that maybe we should invite policymakers or politicians to these conferences, because if we want to expand the chambers, maybe we should invite people who are not typical the ones who assist to things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's
decision makers, I think, because I think we are a little bit biased towards academia, of course, towards fundamental questions, and we are all about the questions, but maybe it's about the answers, right? About the decisions that need to be taken. I think if we want to have an impact, we need to go to the place that is closest to future forward decisions that affect the world. And I think, yeah, maybe we can open ourselves to invite people that are in the kind of the other side of things, more in the making than in the questioning, right?
Yeah. And I would say one thing in that direction. I would say more in the sense that not only I think it is valuable to involve these people in the conversations, because of course there are questions about how you make decisions, about how you take societies into a future that is more or less sustainable, that we're not destroying each other and so on. But I think that as I said, one of the values that we have is that it is such a efficient way to educate people when they are discovering information, right? It is very different to go from like a lecture where someone is claiming this is this way, this is that way. Believe me, I have a PhD, and I'm this very senior professor.
Trust me, my doctor.
Exactly. It's very different to come from that perspective than to offer an environment where discovery is the main mechanism for people to arrive at conclusions, right? And this is usually what SEMF is about. And I want to really make something clear that as far as I am concerned, I'm currently the president and the founder. So obviously I'm not all of SEMF, but I am some kind of representative of the society.
All of SEMF, yeah.
Yeah, so as far as I am concerned, in my opinion, this is what makes SEMF sort of the political apolitical stance, right? Like we are very political in that we have very clear ideas of what we think is valuable, what we think is who should be invited, which is everyone who adheres to these ideals of openness and discourse and so on. But at the same time, we feel that that openness cannot be compromised by the typical dynamics of you go into one program and then you go all in, and then you are in the business of changing minds and orchestrating big efforts across people that need to have a more or less consonant mindset. I think that is just not what our niche is, and I think that is the value that we will retain. That for as long as there is, our values are upheld. So, open intellectual integrity, open discussion, respectful disagreement and debate and so on. As long as those things are preserved, basically anything can be discussed in our environments, and that is rare, right? In an echo chamber heavy environment, politically, it is rare to find a space where you can say, well, I can pose any question because I have the safety that the people are going to engage with this question in a genuine way, right? And it's an honest attempt to further our understanding, get more perspectives, get more exposure, discover things that you have not thought before, and maybe even solve some problems. I mean, of course, eventually there's the actual getting
serendipity is something that should happen a lot within these places. I hope
exactly.
So. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the right word. Yeah.
And yeah, I'm actually wanted to, I mean, the other question I had before was about the future. So I was wondering, like, put yourself in the most positive, optimistic position in life. How do you envision yourself and SEMF in 5 years from now and in 10 years from now?
Okay, yeah, this is a very nice question to close with, I guess. We're running to
I think we're closing to the hours, yes.
yes, no, but I think it's perfect timing. Yeah, so in 5 years and 10 years, yeah, so in 5 years, in the most optimistic mindset that I can have, I would like SEMF to be doing what we do with our interdisciplinary school, our online gatherings, that people have these encounters and their common sort of their sharing of interests and life journeys and different projects that they have, so that the society is fully established. Because of course we are very young in some sense, and none of us had any experience in like management or institutional building or anything like that, and it takes a while to deal with all the practicalities in the real world of being a legal organization and dealing with funding and finding support and so on. So in 5 years, I would say I would like to see that SEMF is well established in that capacity, right? That everything is running smoothly, so that there is a machinery in place where I can be more or less involved, or people who originally put a lot of effort in can be more or less involved as they wish, but the machinery is functioning. There is some pipeline of funding that is coming. There is some pipeline of sort of people input and human resources, ideas coming in, and then some events are happening, and these events keep the essence of the events that we've run so far. And what is this essence? And this is what I would say into the 10-year horizon I would definitely like to take. This essence is, again, where maybe I can hope for, or I can wish for scale, that you want, if one summer school works well, why not 10 summer schools around the world? One can wish for scale.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to add. I would like to see SEMF international, like
right.
SEMF organizations all across all the continents, even Antarctica.
This is totally something I would wish for, especially in the 10-year sort of horizon. But what I would definitely want, regardless of the scale, this is irrespective of how big you can set up your operation, is that if SEMF is operating and there's some events happening, that the people who attend them keep on reporting the same benefits, right? And to me, this is, again, I go back to the sort of example when you were back in school, this idea of just go back to the moment where you had this enthusiastic, almost hectic moment of sharing passions, right? Sharing, you just found something that was so cool that you had to go tell your friend, or like the new trailer for the cool movie came out, or whatever it was, right? You find this moment of genuine it's like the excitement of being exposed to something that you feel like it's too big, that you shouldn't be the only one, right?
Mhm.
And then you meet people that have similar reactions, and that's how like the true friendships are forged, right? Like you have this
Yeah.
really communal moment. To me, that is what SEMF is about. Like to replicate this as much as possible, and that happens, when you sit down and both are trying to understand a mathematical problem, or when you're improvising music together, or where you sit down and you think about this cool idea for a gadget, and maybe you can build a little startup around it. And there are many ways of doing this. But I think that I would say is the main driving factor for me, and what I would like
Mhm.
to keep in the future. So
Yeah, and I think there's one more question I want to ask
mhm.
that may close the whole thing.
Yes.
Um, we bring people who have this common passion of interdisciplinarity, of questioning, or have childlike mentality. But maybe there are people who would benefit from this that do not have, like, they're not self-aware of the necessity of this mentality.
Mhm.
They could benefit from this. So if you were to go to them and tell them why interdisciplinary matters, why they could join initiatives like this, what would you say to them? Mhm.
Mhm. What I would say is that, I mean, maybe using an analogy, one can think of the different disciplines as a landscape, right? You have valleys and hills and different, and I would say if you're comfortable with what you're doing, um, then it always feels better. So in the analogy, by the way, if you're comfortable with what you're doing, in the analogy, you're in some valley, in some
Mhm.
particular area of the landscape that you're like, oh, this is really cool. I have all the resources I need. This is a nice site from my point of view, and so on. So if you're comfortable with that, then I would argue, doesn't it make it better when you have access to all these other areas and you can say, yeah, I have it really really nice for me, right? Like I like my position because you can actually compare to others. And then if people are not very comfortable with what they're doing, which is, I guess, more common, most people are always in flux, I guess,
Mhm.
then considering interdisciplinarity is effectively sort of trying to sort of shoot up in some kind of like a parachute or paraglide or something, and then you have this overview, and our
Mhm.
events are, among other things, offer these sort of overviews,
Mhm.
perspectives, and then you can say, oh, look, I was looking for maybe more rivers to swim into, and my
Yeah, and
place
I
was
didn't
very
know
dry.
that I need it.
Yeah, so so
Yeah.
so that's the analogy I would use, right? Like you either in both possibilities of you being very comfortable in your niche, or being sort of a little bit at at unease, and being sort of uncomfortable. In both cases, having access, at least temporarily, at least in some controlled space, having access to overview and a lot of inputs from people that are working on very different areas can only make your situation better, because at worst, or in the simplest case, you would just say, I was in a very nice place and now I have
You
reference for how
appreciate
good it is.
better, yeah, more
Yes,
deeply what you have. Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say
Cool.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I have 20,000 more questions, but of course I know the time is limited. So I don't know, should we close it like this?
Yes, I think we can
Mhm.
close it like this.
Yeah. I had
I just
even some games to play, but I think the time was like was
we can just schedule one for,
yeah.
let's say, in four or
Mhm.
five Semfiloquia. We can do another one maybe at the end of the cycle after summer
Like a
school, maybe.
closure. Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, it's like
Maybe with the input from all the previous colloquias. Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
this was fantastic. Thank you very much, Sophia, for
No,
being
thank
such a
you, Carlos.
wonderful
Thank
host.
you for existing, really, and for creating such a special place for many of us to feel like home. And I hope
Wonderful.
many others in the future. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
looking forward to more Semfiloquia episodes.
definitely. Let's do it. Yeah.
Yes, all right, Sophia.
Bye
Bye.
bye.